Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields, and today I've got a returning guest, one of my favorites, Eric Miller of Econologics. Eric, thanks for coming on again.
My man, it's always a pleasure and a privilege, and it's good to see you and, fear the beard right now.
Fear the beard and be jealous of your tan. Oh my gosh, you are doing well down in Florida, enjoying the sun. Dude, it's
Thanks,
great
man.
to have you back. You're our favorite financial planner. I loved going to you for advice. Like I mentioned to you earlier before we started recording, your podcast episode in which we talked about financial management through COVID-19 is by far one of my most listened to podcasts. So you shared some great wealth and knowledge. But now we're in a different space.
Yeah.
2 months later, they're still hurt. They're not running at peak efficiencies. They're somewhere in the maybe 40, 60, 70% productivity range. And so private practice owners are gradually getting back into play. Some might even still be shut down.
Yep.
But we want to talk today about what we can do to reset financially. So I've talked in past episodes about resetting business-wise, maybe our goals and our purpose and maybe our marketing strategies and how we see our businesses and getting back into them the way we want to build them back up again. But let's talk financially about ramping back up and reestablishing some fundamental aspects to our financial foundation in our business. And so I think that'll do a lot of us good as we start looking forward, especially as we consider, and I know you're going to talk about this, but just to summarize, we're going to talk about PPP loans and how to use some of that money and how to eventually just be in a better position to withstand these issues going forward. So, let's start with some of the PPP stuff to begin with, unless there's something you want to get off your chest right away.
No, that's good, man. I think, the whole idea is that I think we just have to get the attitude that we're all going to try to get into financial beast mode. Right. Yeah. Let's forget, we're just trying to get by. Let's have the idea that we can get in financial beast mode, which is a term that we're starting to use a lot more because I think it communicates to people, let's up the game a little bit. Let's up the intensity of what needs to be done to get our financial house in order.
Yeah. It does so much for you. Just to be financially sound provides so much freedom and puts you in a position of power that you otherwise don't have. And so when you can really establish the foundation financially and be profitable and force that profit from your business, then there's so much power to come from that.
Oh, it's just, you can relax, totally. To that degree, and when you're relaxed about your money, it's amazing to watch what happens. Like the best opportunities that I see that come to practice owners is when they're relaxed about their financial condition. That's when they seem to get the best opportunities that come to them.
Well, it seems like those opportunities find them.
Yeah.
They don't really have to go far. Maybe they put the word out here or there, like, hey, I want to invest in something. And then they get resources and they do some due diligence. And suddenly you're making money on top of money.
Good things happen to you, man.
Good things happen, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, tell the owners what they should be thinking about with the PPP. A lot of them got funding. Probably a majority of them. How should they see that money? What should they expect, do you think?
Well, I think, like you said, a lot of practice owners are probably around 60, maybe 65% back to seeing the patient load that they were at. And so a lot of them have gotten this influx of money that are sitting in their checking accounts right now. And I think the first thing is that when you get, a lot of money, obviously you have to pay attention to making sure that it doesn't get spent on the things that it shouldn't be there for, right? Yeah. So the purpose of the money is for whatever the stipulations were as part of the CARES Act, and you should use it for that. But at the same time, you're still seeing patients, you're still collecting money, and I would be super aggressive, right, on my collections line. Like I would just be making sure that, when I'm bringing people back, especially in that area, that we're collecting money and really pushing production back up to the numbers that we need to get to, right? So
you're saying don't be compassionate when it comes to co-pays and deductibles. We need to draw a hard line.
Let's not be complacent. Let's kind of try to break all these bad habits that we had with money in the past, right? And you got to be really aggressive on your collections. I think the best owners that we've both seen are impatient with production, right? They're
Mm.
impatient with, you know, not seeing a lot of money come in. They're very patient with investing money, you know, and being diligent with investing money, but you want to be impatient on money coming in.
Mhm.
So, but I would definitely spend, I would spend a lot of time on making sure I was collecting money, and then I would make sure that you are controlling that money, and that you're stacking Benjamins at this point in time, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months,
Yep.
and we could get another wave of uncertainty. And I don't think the people are going to like tolerate another shutdown at this point in time, but people are still nervous and scared, and they may not show up. So I would
Yeah.
have a lot more in liquidity than what I think people have told you that you need in the past.
Mm.
And for me, I think it's important that you really you have that liquidity. So I would stack as much money as I possibly can at this point in time.
Yeah. Would you, if they didn't have it before, people probably recognize the importance of having a line of credit available to them at any given time. So
Yes.
would you recommend that, having a line of credit open and available to you?
Well, obviously, I'm always going to recommend that you have lines of credit open for everyone. But
Mhm.
I would, I'd even look at it a little differently right now.
Okay.
I think there's five really, really important accounts that I think every practice owner should have
Okay.
going forward, because, the level of financial unpreparedness, I think, is very evident in that a lot of practices couldn't survive for more than 1 month
Yeah.
without making any money, right?
Yep.
That was just an economic reality for so many practices. So there's an engineering term called having a factor of safety, right? So if you're gonna cross a bridge and it says, hey, this bridge can only hold 5,000 pounds, well, the engineers didn't build it so that if the car weighs 5,001, that the whole thing's going to come crashing down, right? So they build that factor of safety. So as an owner, you got to have that same mindset when it comes to running your household finances or your business finances. You have
Hmm.
to have buffers in
Yeah.
place, right? So for us, I'm trying to tell a lot of practice owners, look, you got to control money differently than what you did in the past.
Hmm.
And that means that you have to have, I think there's 5 different accounts that I would set up and make sure that they are part of what my make break number would be for my business.
So you literally have five separate
5
banking
separate
accounts.
accounts. Yeah,
Oh,
5
okay.
separate accounts,
Hmm.
and I can dive deep into that and just
Yeah.
really quickly explain each one of them. The first one we call our wealth storage account. That's where the first 10% of your practice revenue transfers from the business to a personal wealth building plan so that you can create other income streams for your household, right?
Hmm.
That is what we call your owner pay. That is really the reward that you get for the risk that you took in putting that business there, having to deal with all the employee issues, the debt payments, the compliance aspect of it. That's kind of your owner pay,
Hmm.
right? So we call that the wealth storage account. That'd be account number one.
10% gross revenues off to the side.
Right
Done.
off the top, just like you didn't make it, right?
Man, I was like,
Yeah.
and I think I told you before, if I had done that from the beginning 16 years ago, oh my gosh, my financial situation would be significantly better.
Yeah, it would be good. And that right there, if you can at least get that one in, I mean, you're going to win the game. Okay.
Yeah.
The second one would be a business protection and liability fund. Now, what's the
Okay.
purpose of this? Well, I think we all kind of realized that we did not have enough in business reserves to pay our expenses for more than a month, right? So I would start siphoning off money into that account, and that's for the purpose of creating about 3 months of business reserves.
Okay.
Okay. Now that
And
would
then when you
hand
say business reserves, would you get that number maybe from your CPA, just of your fixed expenses only?
you can make it like, just basically payroll and rent and
Okay.
utilities and those kinds of things. I mean,
So maybe a skeleton crew with rent
completely.
and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. So it's not your entire gross expenses right now. Maybe
correct.
scaled back a little bit, but multiply that by 3
It may
per
not
month.
include all your profits and everything like that, but
Oh
it would
no.
be, yeah, it would certainly be a number that would be able to, so that the organization can function for at least 3 months. Not only that, but that money would be there for if you ever got sued for some reason. right?
Mm,
So that would be, to settle a lawsuit for legal fees,
yeah.
right? Anything that has to do with the protection of the business.
Hmm.
I think we all realize, like, big corporations have these kinds of accounts, right?
Yes.
So that if they get attacked, they have resources to fend themselves, to
And
defend themselves.
most of our professional liability plans, they'll cover us for $1 million to $3 million depending on our plan. Um, but the out of pocket expense is usually somewhere around $10,000.
Yeah,
So
but
we got to
even that,
make sure to have that.
yeah, it's like weather related. I mean,
Oh yeah.
sometimes, I mean, there's like, you have a snow days and you can't see patients, right? I mean, still got to pay the bills, you know.
Hmm.
So it's really an important fund to have for the protection of the business.
Sure.
So that would be number two. The third one is kind of simple. It's just a tax account,
Hmm.
right? So in any business, most of the businesses that we see are S corps or partnerships,
Yeah.
or LLCs, taxes S corp. So the profits flow through to the owners. So
Yeah.
you're liable for the tax on the profits of the business personally, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it would make sense that to work with your CPA to get some kind of a projection of what you think your estimates are going to be, and just make sure money is being siphoned in that account,
Hmm.
because nobody likes to get a call from their accountant that says, "Oh, by the way, you owe $50,000," and you're like, "I don't know where I'm going to pay the money from." Right?
I've been there a couple times. I had to learn the hard way a couple times. I had to get hit over the head.
Yep.
It's April, and the my CPA was in great. He was in a great mood. He's like,
Yeah.
"You had an awesome year last year, man. You made a ton of money. You did great. I mean, do you think you're going to do the same next year?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to kill it next year." It's like, "Cool. Well, make sure you put a check in the mail for $80,000 for the IRS tomorrow, because it's April 14th." And, and I'm like, "What?" So I had to figure that out pretty quickly.
Hit of your stomach just like went, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah. So, setting money aside is important for your
Yep.
taxes.
So you definitely want to set money aside for that, and then again, at the same time, when you really start making a lot of money, you're gonna probably want to invest or utilize that money to maybe create tax structures where you can minimize your overall tax liability. Right. Well,
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
money to do that. That's how the
Sure.
the very wealthy. I mean, they set up structures so that they can utilize them to offset their taxes.
And when you
So
say other structures, you're talking about other LLCs, like
yeah,
for the
yes.
family, that cover your family and your toys and your cars. And
Yes, or
that
just
takes
like
money to set that stuff up.
yeah, other advanced tax structures, like conservation easements, or like captive
Yeah.
insurance companies,
Sure.
things that you can create, but you need money to do that, right?
Okay.
So that can help offset. You can either pay that or the IRS, you
Yeah.
choose, right? I think I'd rather do that one right there.
Yeah, exactly.
The fourth account is simply going to be a business expansion account. Now,
Mm,
to me, what I how I try to look at this is there's this idea that you have to use debt to expand. Okay. Now,
mm,
you can use debt to expand, but I don't
sure.
think it's always necessary to have to use debt to expand.
Right.
Okay. Um, in a business, you should be able to have enough profit where you can reinvest some of the profits to use for expansion, either buying more equipment, maybe buying a satellite practice, or doing,
Hmm.
you know, maybe putting 20% down on a new
A new
building or
building.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
So the idea that I always have to use debt to expand, I don't think is necessarily true. So I would have some kind of a business expansion fund
Hmm.
that you use to facilitate growth and expansion of your business
Of
empire.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially as physical therapists, when we expand like that, that usually entails hiring on a physical therapist, which is going to
Yep.
require some upfront salary before you get a return on that investment. So whether it's a new PT that you've got to bring on, or, tenant improvements that you need to do to the space to a bigger building,
Yep.
they want the cash, upfront for that. And the bank is going to ask you to put some cash down in these situations, have some
Yeah.
available and ready for you. That way, the opportunities, again, going back to the opportunities before you with so much cash and reserves specifically for business development, make it that much easier and
Absolutely.
opens up the way.
And then if you do, let's say that you did borrow a bunch of money to expand a bunch of practices, then all of a sudden, guess what? They just shut down the economy. Now you have no money coming in and you have all this debt service to pay, right?
Yeah.
So it's just another reason why I think, kind of have a mindset that I don't necessarily need to always borrow to expand. Doesn't mean that you don't borrow money, because,
No.
borrowing money for expansion can definitely, or, cash flow producing assets is definitely warranted,
Yeah.
but not necessarily all the time, especially for a PT practice.
I gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
the last account, my favorite account, and I just came up with this, so this is mine. It's
Uh-huh.
called a celebration account,
Oh,
right?
cool.
So, I think that a lot of practice owners wildly don't celebrate their victories as much as they should,
Not
right?
enough.
And you really have to, like, it's a grind sometimes, right? And you need to, like, celebrate to get off that mental charge that accumulates with that grind, right? So, I have people just kind of siphon. It doesn't have to be much. It can be $1,000 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Just, but if you hit a goal, I got this, 10, 12, 20,000 bucks that I'm just going to blow, right? And just have a
Yeah.
celebration of some kind,
Yeah.
so I think it's important to have something like that as well.
Well, life is all about the experiences, man. If the
Yeah.
more cool experiences that you can generate, how rich your life is. That's cool.
100%.
The cool thing I like about all of these, and I've done this to a certain extent myself, it makes it so easy if you just have just automatic transfers. I have my tax account, and I know
Hmm.
how much my taxes should be at the end of the year for whether it's property taxes or personal taxes, we can estimate and whatnot. But I have an automatic draw from the business account into that account. Same thing with my business protection liability. I just siphon off a little bit of money, so I never have to think about it. You set it up one time and just it siphons money off every month. And it's like the money was never there to begin with. So it's not like you're writing a check and grimacing at the same time.
Nope. I think a lot of practice owners have an opportunity right now to set these accounts up. Just like you said, you want to set it up automatically and systematically doing this. But what it does, is it puts an expense on the business, right? And that expense now needs to be covered by demand of income. And that's why it
Mm,
works. That's the only reason why it works, because the
mhm.
business now gets accustomed to it as an expense. Now, I would say this, I would start kind of small and then
Sure.
build up over time in doing that.
Hmm.
But if you can get most of these accounts, in as expenses, then you are never, ever, ever going to have to worry about turbulent financial times, because
Hmm.
everything's covered at this
Yeah,
point in time.
exactly.
And that's how it should be. That should be
Yeah.
normal. It
Yes.
shouldn't be, I have to borrow $150,000 or $200,000 from the government to save my bacon. I
Mhm.
don't think anybody wants to get in the habit of doing that, because it
Yeah.
just kind of makes people not be responsible necessarily
Yeah.
for their money condition if there's, like, no way you can lose.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Let's take this as an opportunity, as a lesson learned.
yeah,
And, and hopefully for most of the people out there that are listening, they weren't completely devastated, but they have
correct.
an opportunity now where as they're building back up, that they can establish these different accounts and really set up for their future. Because the concept, the wealth storage concept that I had Christopher Music on, one of my first episodes 2 years ago. And by the way, we just had our 2nd-year anniversary here, the first part of June, with the
Nice.
podcast. But he mentioned 10% off the top, and that just
Yeah,
blew my mind crazy.
I
And
know.
I've since read about it with Mike Michalowicz and Profit First, and he has a great way of laying it out and whatnot. But even if it's not 10% to begin with, how easy would it be to start with 1 or 2% of your gross revenues siphoned off, and then increase by a single percentage point every month or two until
Doesn't
you get
take
to 10?
much.
I mean, you can either rip off the band-aid and go straight to 10%, or you could gradually build up if that's going to be a little bit hard for you.
I wouldn't encourage that. I would usually start with, like you said, like, start with just a flat dollar amount, and
Okay,
then, like, automatically program it up over,
there you
like, a 10
go.
to 12-month period
I like it.
until you get up to your 10%. And what that does, it gets the business accustomed to that as an actual expense.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's the best way that I've seen it done. And but it definitely works either way. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you got a couple $100,000 sitting in your wealth storage account, and your
Hmm.
business accounts are looking healthy, and you just feel like you're in control of your money, you
Well,
know?
yeah, it puts you in a position of power.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to be is in the same situation that you were, especially if you got negatively affected by the pandemic. You don't want to be in that position with so much going on around us, so much unrest, so
Yep.
many questions about the future. You don't want to be in that position again.
Not me. Not at
Yeah.
all.
Right.
You
So,
know,
so the
think
more we
about how you're
can,
feeling. Think about how people you're feeling right now. Think about all of the, um, think about, you almost felt like a dartboard, right? Like it was just like nothing, everything was just happening to you, you know? And unfortunately, I think a lot of that has to do with just how the system is set up.
hmm,
And, you know, a lot of business owners just kind of feel that way. You know, they're under a monetary system where, you know, your money's not worth anywhere near it was 10, 15 years ago because of inflation, and they're printing more money right now. You're under a political system where you're just like, I have no idea who to trust. I don't
hmm,
believe either party. I don't believe anything that they're saying, you know. We're under a tax system that's completely ambiguous and hard to understand. You know, you're under a healthcare system. I mean, I don't have to tell PTs about the healthcare system. You know, you're under a legal system where, you know, you're, the rights of you as an owner are underneath the rights of, you know, employees or
hmm,
anybody that would want to target you for your money.
yeah,
And you're under an investment system where it's basically, hey, just put all of your money in the stock market and we'll just hope and pray, then I think everything will turn out okay, right?
yeah,
Even though I don't have much control over that, you know.
yeah,
And it's, yeah, I can understand why practice owners are like spinning around sometimes.
hmm,
And but there is a way to, you know, fight back. And I think the first thing is that you just have to take the viewpoint that I can do something about each of those,
yeah,
and then actually get a plan together on how you're going to fight back.
hmm,
Because what's the alternative?
right.
You know, what's the
Yeah,
alternative?
yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's not hard. That's the thing, is we don't there's not a lot of mental gymnastics going on here. Yeah, you have to open up a few bank accounts and whatnot, and spend maybe an hour or two setting up transfers. But over time, there's a lot of comfort in knowing that everything is managed financially.
all of those things I just mentioned can be done in such a short period of time. You
Hmm.
know, the actions that you would need to create in order to change your financial trajectory. People think it's going to be this long and arduous process, and it's
Yeah.
going to be like, I'm going to have to change my lifestyle and all that. Well, you
Hmm.
do a little bit, but at the end of the day, isn't it worth it to
Yeah.
like, you know, have, you know, to really pay the price for the next maybe 2 to 5 years, to like have the rest of your life where you never have to worry about money again, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that, you know, to me, that's worth whatever, you know, uncomfort you'd have to do in the short term, you
Hmm.
know, to put in the systems in place so that your household and your business can flourish
Yeah.
over the course of the next 30 to 40 years, man.
Yeah.
You know, don't be
Yeah.
short-sighted about, you know, things.
Exactly.
Don't like fall in the trap of, I always have to have, you know, the nicest car or the, you know, the most expensive house. You can totally do all those things,
Hmm.
you know, just as,
Yeah.
but you have to follow really good financial habits
Yeah.
and pay a little price in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Something that I want to just touch on really quickly that came to me, and it was something that an exercise that we went through in your, is it a 3-day seminar that you have down in Clearwater
Yeah,
now?
the Financial Freedom Summit. Yeah.
Yeah, the Financial Freedom Summit, and it was simply an exercise that you took. The group of us, but it was me and my wife, sitting down and determining what our monthly revenue goal was as a household.
Hmm.
And I wonder if that's appropriate for people to consider now, as because I know you did a previous webinar about readjusting your 2020 goals for your clinic, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good time to consider our goals, our financial goals for our household. And if you haven't gone through the exercise before, figure out what is that monthly goal that you have in revenue that comes from your clinics to your home. And
Yeah.
we set that number. We set a number that's really high for us. And at the time, I think we went, what, a year and a half ago, we are just like, I don't know if that can happen, but that's our number. It's
Yeah.
it's not just meeting our expenses. It was probably double what we assumed our expenses would be, and it was
Yep.
crazy. Which
It's
would which would make us be like, we're living high on the hog if we can get to that. But in a year and a half, dude, it's getting really close.
I'm telling you right now, if you don't have a target, you are doing yourself a disservice, right?
Yeah.
Because every time I've given practice owners, and practice owners are overachievers. They
Yes.
are, right? They
Hmm.
love to achieve targets, right?
Yep.
And this is the problem I have when people are working with financial advisors, that I ask them, I was like, did they give you an actual income target for your household? How much money do you need to make? Right? And that just doesn't consist of what's going to cover to pay your quote unquote your expenses, right?
Hmm.
That would include you putting money away into investments, to create other income streams.
Uh-huh.
That would include your taxes. That would include all the other goals that you have. Like, how much do you really need to make to live the life that you want to live? It is unlimited, right? But once you get that number, right, and you see it now, it's not a confusion. It's like, that's a certainty point, right? And then all you have to do is say, okay, well, I thought it was $200,000 a year, but it really turns out that I need to make $400,000 a year. Okay, well,
Hmm.
you can go through, oh, how am I going to do this, right? Well, the good news is you have a business, right? So you just go to and say, how much would I need to get this business up to where I could, earn $400,000 a year for my household?
Yeah.
And you just operate on that target. And by doing that, it's amazing what happens. I mean, year after year, client after client, when I give them targets and I look back and I show them, I'm like, hey, remember when we gave you that target? And then I look back, look how much you made. And they're like, wow, I didn't really think about that, and I'm not
Yeah.
taking credit for it, but it's part of it's just giving the observation of things, and giving someone some reality that this is what you need to do, right?
Hmm.
And it increases your necessity level, it increases your financial awareness, it increases
Yeah.
your demand for money,
Yeah.
and that's the secret sauce right there. Because
Exactly.
all I do is just show people how to channel it, control it, and hopefully expand it, but
Hmm.
it's your job to like go out and make it.
Yeah, it's such a cool exercise because I think, and the coaching clients that I have, I'll say, so what are your financial goals in regards to the clinic? Well, I want to pull $200,000 a year from that clinic, and I'll say, so what does that mean? What profit margins are you running at, and how many visits does that entail? Are you
Right.
working full time or part time or not at all? And so, and that stumps them. They just they just want to get to the number.
I know.
And so working backwards and figuring out, it's not just the number, it's a scene, it's an ideal scene that you want to get to. Well,
Right.
let's get really clear about that. And once we have some clarity about that and what your part is in that ideal scene, let's work back into the numbers and see where the gap is between where you are now and what you want to be at. Because you'll then recognize that, oh, I'm only seeing 8 new patients a week now. I need to bump that up to 20. Okay, well, what are your marketing efforts going to take to get from 8 new patients a week to 20 new patients a week? And that starts giving you some action items. But if you have some clarity about that number, there's something magical about that, putting that intention out in the universe.
It is. And I think you hit it right on the head. The clearer you are on the exact, I mean, precisely what you need or what you want your scene to look like, right? The
Hmm.
better you can compare it to where you are right now, and you can see what the outpoints are, right?
Hmm.
And it really isn't, for a lot of people, the gap really isn't that much. It
It's
doesn't
not.
take a lot,
Hmm.
to get to bridge that gap.
Yeah,
But you need a plan, and I think you need someone, to hold you accountable to
totally.
making sure that you're hitting those numbers as well. I think that's
Right.
a really important part as well.
That's huge. Yeah, whether it's a financial planner, and honestly, a lot of the financial planners that I have had in the past aren't good at communicating in those aspects. But finding the right financial planner, finding a coach that can walk you through that kind of thing is really important. So they actually make you verbalize and hold you accountable, like you're talking about.
A hundred
And
percent.
that's a huge part of the process. In fact, another success story. One of my first guests was Sean Miller. He
Mm-hmm.
uh, he sold his practices the same time we did, but he said 5 years earlier he said he had a number in mind that was like, I want to get to this number in as far as wealth. Yeah, I want so many thousands, millions, whatever that number was for him. And 5 years later, he hit it. And there's something to it, man. You
I
put it
can't
out there.
explain it,
Yeah, exactly. We're talking
Yeah.
about action steps and that kind of stuff, but sometimes it's just simply the intentions out there, and you visualize it, and you have that number, and you keep that number in your head, and
It's a
things.
decision. Yeah. It's a decision
I
that you
love
make. You
that.
look at the derivation of the word decision, it literally means to cut off. right?
Hmm.
So when you make a decision that you've really made, you kind of cut off anything else that would prevent you from reaching
Mm.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
And there's some power behind that. And I can't explain it. I can't explain a lot of things, but you can observe the phenomenon and just, know that it's true
Hmm.
because you observe it
Yeah. And once you make that decision, things just tend to fall in place.
every time, man. As long as there's a
That's
good
good.
purpose there,
That's right.
and you keep, and I think another thing too, you keep your personal ethics in good shape.
Hmm.
And that to me is a secret for success right there, because if you're doing the right things, that there does seem to be a reward for that. But people that are doing immoral, destructive actions, that there's a penalty to pay on that one.
Yeah,
That's a whole
exactly.
nother webinar though, that we
That's a
could leave
different
that
story.
one on.
Yeah. But it goes back to, I did another episode with Mike Bills, and it was simply not so much that he was doing anything immoral, but he put more emphasis on improving himself. And as he did that, as he focused on himself and making his time sacred, and really holding other people accountable around him, his business tripled in the course of about 18 months.
It's amazing. It can happen
So
so fast.
yeah, it can happen really quickly. So there's some power to maintaining your ethics, and don't sleep until 10 a.m. I mean,
No,
you're not going to get to your number by that, but
no,
maintain your ethics and hold that number fast and steady. And like you said, clinic owners, we're overachievers. We'll get there. We'll find a way.
always do.
Cool, man.
I love it.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on today, man. Any parting shots, anything coming up with Econologics you want to share?
I would just say that to your listeners, if there's, if we're definitely offering 15 to 30-minute free consultation. So if
Cool.
they want to contact us, then they can certainly meet with one of our specialists, and we'll cover any questions that they have from a financial aspect. I certainly would not wait. I certainly would not like kind of pause and contemplate like what I'm going to do with my money. I think right now it's really, really important that you get a plan, that you get
Mm-hmm.
some direction, that you
Yeah.
get very precise on exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve, because the dangers of not doing something like that are too great. And there is going to be a different financial scene in this country in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think the people that know how to produce, know how to manage their money, know how to control their money, know how to invest it correctly, know how to stay out of debt. All those things that that we really show people how to do are going to be rewarded for that. And the people that are just saying everything's going to go back to normal, I'll just do the things that I did in the past, you're going to get punished at some point in time, because it just goes
Yeah.
against natural law.
Yeah.
So that would be my call to action, is like, get on a plan, get with someone that can hold you accountable for your actions, and you can reach out to us, and I'll give you a link or something like that they can schedule a 15 to 30-minute time with us to talk.
Well, go ahead and share that with us. What is it? How can they
Yeah.
get in touch with you?
So, well, I'll share you a link that we can that
Okay.
would that we can just put into the body of the in the podcast.
Okay,
and then
not a problem.
I'll make that offer to them. But you can always go to econologicsfinancialadvisors.com and reach out to us that way. We got a YouTube channel as well, Econologics Financial Advisors. So those would be a couple ways you can get a hold of us.
Yeah, and you guys have some great webinars coming out every so often. I know the next one this week is 7 tax saving strategies and stuff like that.
So we're going to talk about taxes, and I do want to mention that too, because a lot of people that have gotten all this money from the PPP loan that they're hoping to get forgiven, and it may, but at the same time, you're also building up all this cash from money that you're not spending right now. So you really got to be a little cognizant of how much you're going to have to pay in taxes right now. So I would definitely tune into that. We'll give you, I think, 4 fairly simple, powerful strategies that nobody's using, and then I'm going to give you 2 advanced tax strategies that can really minimize your taxes by $20,000 to $50,000.
Nice.
So it's definitely worth tuning into that. And then the week after that, we're going to talk a little self-storage and real estate investments too.
Oh, how
so
cool.
Yeah, we're going to put out a lot of good webinars.
That's awesome, man. Well, hopefully people stay in touch and stay in tune to what you're putting out, because you got some great content.
Thanks, bro.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on today.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to you later, Eric.
Yeah, man. See ya.
Bye-bye.